Hey everyone, and thanks for jumping back into the cryptoverse. Let me know if you guys can hear me. And then we'll go ahead and get started. I'm just gonna post the stream in a couple different places, and then we'll go ahead and jump in. How's everyone doing tonight? Night my time. Yeah, let me know what you guys think. Looks like Bitcoin's now at 13.3, so we're starting to get some price movement. So I thought it'd just be interesting to watch. And see if it can rally on up higher. It was sitting just below 13.2 for a while, but with this recent move, let's talk, let's discuss. It's Saturday night where I am, um, and yeah, I am still a little bit sick, so hopefully you can bear with me. So yeah, I mean, this is why we're here, right? I mean, this is it's exciting. It's business as usual. This is why we're here. I mean, if it weren't for you know incredible moves of Bitcoin, right, and bubbles forming, we wouldn't be here for the most part. I mean, maybe you would. I wouldn't be here if we didn't see this kind of stuff. So I mean, this is why we're here, and this is why we follow the markets, and it's why we recognize that Bitcoin is such a great asset, right? It's such a great long term asset, and if we pull up the BLX, which is just to get a glimpse of our macro chart, right? And again, this one only shows daily closes, so it's not going to have the most recent price action. As you can see, it'll likely just so yeah 13.1. But the nice thing, right, is when we zoom out here, let's switch over to like the weekly time frame. Log scale, auto, and then we'll just add on a regression band. This is why we're here. Is because it's because we recognize that we recognized it for the last couple of years that this is the accumulation phase. And you could argue, right? I mean, you could argue that we're still in the accumulation phase. We're still within the macro level accumulation phase. Certainly buying it at 13K is not nearly as attractive as buying at 3,800 or 4K a few months ago. But theoretically speaking, or just talking about our regression band, right, and identifying these key accumulation regions, right, and they're not that hard to spot, right? I mean, it's obvious. These key accumulation regions. This is why we're here. Is because you know what we said. We recognize that things can look bad sometimes. We can have dumps someday. It can go down 60% in a day, but over the macro scale, it'll trend up. And on the short term, it's a random walk and maybe geometric Brownian motion, theoretically speaking. But on the macro scale, there is a trend to this. And sometimes, it almost seems like it's too simple. Like, I mean, is it really this easy? You look at the macro chart, and is the idea that it just goes up and down between these two bands, right? I mean, it seems like it. I think the market is just really inefficient as the market matures. It'll well, by definition, it will become a lot more efficient, right? And we know this. It will become more efficient over time. But for now, it is still very inefficient, and that's just the way it goes. And you can look at the autocorrelation function of Bitcoin and recognize that it's getting more efficient with time. It's not just me spouting nonsense. It's looking at the autocorrelation function of Bitcoin and recognizing that it's becoming less and less a correlated version of a lagging self or whatever. But yeah, I mean, this is why we're here. We recognized this is and was the accumulation range, and that we're still in it. And this is a very exciting time with Bitcoin with Bitcoin at 13.3, right? This is a very exciting time. But again, I mean, the goal is a lot higher than this over the next few years. The goal is, of course, a six-figure Bitcoin. So again, it's still, to some degree, it's still just playing in the sandbox, right? I mean, this is slowly the world will really start to recognize that, whoa, things are picking back up. When if once Bitcoin reaches 20K, I still think it'll be a little ways off, but once Bitcoin, or a sustainable 20K anyways, once it reaches 20K, the world will start to take more notice, because then you had so many people that looked at Bitcoin back in 2017, 2018 when it was 20K, and then watched it dump and then just thought it was over. Well, these people are going to look back at it and say, oh, it's back at 20K. It must not have been that scam or whatever that I thought it was, and it was just, I was, I happen to be, if for the people that bought up here, they might just recognize I just came in a bad time. And so we'll continue marching along, business as usual, and one day I think we'll make it back up to this red band up here. By the way, remember, I mean, short-term bubbles always a possibility. We said this, we've been saying this for years. It was true back here. It was true back in 2019. We saw a short-term bubble. It's always possible to see these immediate breakouts, where we come up rather quickly rather than slower. But I think we'll continue to see them. I mean, it doesn't, the price of Bitcoin, if you look at the last market cycle, it doesn't just, it goes up and then it retraces, right? It goes up and retraces, and it goes up and retraces, and up, retrace, and up, retrace, up, retrace, and then up. So like this is just how the market works. It doesn't, it doesn't necessarily just always go up or move sideways all the time. It tends to go up and retrace, and then maybe sit in a sideways period for an extended period of time. And we've had some of those. And if you follow the channel, we've talked about these extended accumulation periods in the past, right? And we saw them over here. We had one that lasted us about half a year or so. Here was another one that lasted about half a year, and we've already seen some of them this cycle, right? I mean, if you look at the price, right? Here was an accumulation phase, and a lot of people call this a distribution phase. We did not. We said it was a reaccumulation phase. We called it, for Ethereum, we called it the reaccumulation phase of a lifetime. So this accumulation phase lasted approximately 84 days. This one also lasted approximately 84 days. And so we will have, I mean, it's really bullish right now, and hopefully we can continue riding it up in the short term, but we will have continued periods where it does just move sideways for a while. And as I've said before, for me, it's those periods which are really exciting, because it allows you to get into the market, right? It's quiet. There's not a lot of people talking about it. It allows you to get into the market at a nice, calm time where you don't have to FOMO in. You can make a rational decision based on something other than your emotions and get in, and then you just wait, right? You wait for the pump, you wait for the move to come to you. Right? You wait for these moves. You don't not buy, or sorry, this is not financial advice, but my contention, right, is I don't just not buy in this region, and then once it starts pumping, then I buy, right? No. You buy, I buy when it's down here, and down here of course too, but you buy when it's going sideways and it's calm, because once the pump starts, you're already seeing a nice return on your investment, right? This is the idea. I know a lot of people, I've spoken to a lot of people in the markets. There were a ton of people that were waiting for 10.5 to break before getting in. And there's nothing necessarily inherently wrong with that if your main goal, of course, is to, if your main goal, right, is just to be as risk averse as possible, and you felt like 10.5 is what needed to break for you to have confidence in the market, that's fine. But if you were someone who, did not buy even when it was down here and all the way up, right, and in this region too, because someone on Twitter or YouTube told you that the 4-hour gap at 3,500 had to fill, then this is just dumb money, in my opinion. If that's what you're basing it off of. Now, on the other hand, there's a lot of people that said that the 1 day gap at 9,600 had to fill. And what did we say on the channel? It's possible that it fills. It's still possible that it fills, but it's too risky to bet the kitchen sink on, right? It's too risky not to hold Bitcoin in that situation, because it's like, okay, do you give up a, basically the best performing asset of the last decade, you know, because some random person on the internet told you that some gap had to fill? Which, by the way, I understand that these gaps have filled in the past, but we didn't have these during the last bull market, so we don't even know. I mean, during the accumulation phase, they filled, but that's just natural volatility, okay? We haven't had a bull run where we were going back and filling these gaps. So when people say, they always fill, this is just simply not true, because we just don't know if, we haven't actually looked at a prior Bitcoin bear or a prior Bitcoin bull market, looked at it and said, you know what, it always came back and filled it, because this just didn't exist back then. So, don't bet the kitchen sink on random YouTubers, right? And I mean, to be fair, that goes for me too, right? I mean, I have my ideas, I put them out there. I think that Bitcoin is on a path, to go up several times from here. But at the same time, like, never invest more than you can afford to lose. The spiel, right? I think most of you are, if you follow this channel, you're a little bit more, or I hope you're already obvious, you're already aware of all this. But even me, I mean, I think it's going to go up several times. There's always a chance that it doesn't. But would you be here, right? Would you be here on a Saturday night watching me if you thought Bitcoin was just going to go to zero eventually? Or at least in the next like 10 to 20 years? You probably wouldn't. So I imagine if you are watching, there's a good chance you also agree with me in that we are on a path back to where we belong, at a bubble territory in a few years. Now you can see, as we pointed out, the similarities between, being slowly moving up. We talked about this, a year ago, a year and a half ago, something like that. Of in order to stay within our regression band, the price of Bitcoin has to slowly move up. Because if it doesn't, right, if all of a sudden you see the price of Bitcoin doing this and then just moving sideways forever, then clearly this regression band would just be completely meaningless, right? It wouldn't get us what we want, because it's saying, okay, well, Bitcoin is entered in some type of new phase here. By the way, I mean, the price is still at 13.3. If it moves significantly, obviously I'll pull it up. I have an eye on it, but so I mean, again, the idea, right, is that, okay, we have to slowly move up. And over the last few years, it can feel like we weren't necessarily making progress, because we hit 3,100 here and 3,800 here. But if you take a step back, and taking a step back is often very useful. If you take a step back, I mean, you can generally see that the price is moving up, right? I mean, generally speaking, the price is moving up. And we had a period where, it was a bubble, right? A short-term bubble. We had a period where it was the short-term crash. But for the most part, right, the price is slowly moving up. And in addition to moving up, it's moving up within the confines of our trusty regression band. And I think this is going to be useful, because once we break above this, right, and let's suppose that at some point we're out here. I don't know when it'll be, but let's suppose at some point we're like halfway between. I guarantee you there's going to be so many people that look back at this regression band and be like, oh man, why didn't I buy more? Like, why did I listen to someone who told me that we had to fill a gap? This is just generally what I think. So, by the way, if you look at the regression band, not that the exact numbers mean too much, right? Because it's just based on an uncertainty I came up with. But the lower bound to the uncertainty band is currently at 69.45, or sorry, it's at 67.86, and the 200-week moving average is at 69.45. So we are going to see these cross soon. And remember, when it crossed through it during the last cycle, it crossed through at a success. This is what I love, because there was a similarity between where it crossed last cycle and where it crossed this cycle. If you look where it crossed last cycle, it crossed. I need to put the 20-week back on here. So when it crossed, when the 200-week moving average crossed through the regression band, okay, it corresponded basically to our first successful hold of the 20-week moving average, more or less, right? It was basically right around that time. And then present day, we're essentially going to look back. It was a little bit later, but it's still somewhat the same time, like, holding that 20-week moving average. And then as a reminder, whenever the 200-week moving average came back into the regression band right here, it also corresponded essentially to the new all-time the paradigm shift, right? The local peak. So that might be something to watch, right? Just the 200-week moving average slowly coming below the regression band, and then the regression band continues on up like this over the next few years, and then the 200-week, if the price does something like this, and then it comes up here into like this massive bubble, the 200-week moving average will get pulled up to it, and it'll be interesting to see if that also corresponds in like the new all-time high or something. That'll just be something to watch. Price of Bitcoin still at 13.3. We'll see if it breaks. By the way, I don't think it's that important, but I just wanted to draw your attention to it. There are some similarities, right? I mean, I don't normally look at a 1-hour chart. I was looking at something else related to the risk levels, which you guys know I follow, and I follow on the channel. But I thought there were some similarities, right, between looking at this chart and seeing the first peak here, a second peak here, and then obviously we go back down to the bottom, right, and then a third peak which was higher than the first two. Now this is on the 1 hour time frame, so I really don't think that analyzing the 1 hour time frame is really worth anyone's time. But I happen to have it up, and was looking at it for another reason, because I was plotting a risk level. I just saw this pattern, and I thought the pattern looked similar, right? And we've seen this type of pattern before. This kind of this move up to the top, and then move back down, then a longer move, and then we break through the prior local tops. We go up significantly higher. We've seen this on the daily time frame, okay? So same thing, right? So we go up to the first peak, back down, back up, second peak, back down, and then back up, and then the third peak peaked higher than the first two. And then this time it actually came back down to the bottom, and then it rallied through, okay? Then the second time we came up to the top, came back down, came back up to the top, came back down, and then the third peak came back up to the top, and the peak was slightly higher again than the first two peaks, right? So some similarities, and then afterwards we came back down to the bottom, back up to the top. So, and there were some similarities here too, because if you look closely, you could say, okay, well it actually did come down some and then back to the top, but then it came all the way down back to the top, and instead of doing what we did last time, right? So it came down here back to the top, it broke through. This one came down back to the top and did not break through, right? So it does not always repeat. Sometimes things play out a little bit differently. And let me just add back on the 20-week moving average. So I need to switch it to 140 days because we're on the daily time frame. Right, and so we came back up, and now again it's not on the daily time frame, so I don't think it's necessarily that important. I just thought it was a similar pattern that I had seen before, and I was like, that's interesting, because I recognize this pattern because we spent so much time looking at it on the channel. So we'll see if it can rally through. There's always a good chance we just push through and go up to 14K and see what happens there, right? And I think 14K, there's a good chance we will hold some resistance at that level if we do make it up there in the short term. I mean, I think whenever we make it up there, we're not just gonna. I can't say we're not gonna do anything, because Bitcoin has fooled people many times in the past. I wasn't really making videos back then, but if you remember back to the beginning of 2019, everyone was saying, 6K is going to be a level that is going to hold resistance for a really long time. And I mean, to be fair, back then, I thought there was a good chance it would have too. I just wasn't making videos back then. And then it didn't, right? I mean, Bitcoin sliced through 6K like butter. Like, it wasn't even there. It did not even care that people thought it was going to be a strong resistance point. It was more so, you know what? I really just don't care, and we're just going to blast through it. So again, you look at 14K and say, well, it seems like it's probably going to be a pretty strong resistance. If you look at monthly candles if you look over at monthly candles, you can see that the monthly candles, let's zoom in. So you can see here, right, that the monthly candles back in December of 2017 and November of 2018 peaked at 14K. So it seems to reason that 14K would be a region where we might hold some resistance, because that was where we held resistance during our mania phase. That was where we held huge resistance during our mania phase, and we only saw wicks up to 20K. We really did not spend that much time at 20K. It was just but a fleeting moment in time. So when you look at it on a monthly time frame, we are flirting with that level of 14K. So we could be there sooner rather than later. It also could take us a little while longer, right? There's always a chance that we come back down. And again, I can't tell you what's going to happen in the short term. I just try to react to it. If we do come back down, we'll see. I mean, the 12K has not been tested yet. It doesn't necessarily have to be tested as support. I don't think anything necessarily has to happen, and that's why I don't trade this way, because these patterns don't have to play out in any particular way. But even in a bearish scenario where we come back down to 12K, it's still very much macro bullish, right? That's why it's really exciting right now for Bitcoin, because even if it were to retrace by 10%, let's just take a measured move. Let's say Bitcoin were to, we've had plenty of 10% days, 5%, 10% days. If Bitcoin were to retrace by 5%, it would still be at 12,600, which from there to the 20 week is, I don't have the 20 week plotted, but we know it's around 10,600 or so. So from there down to the 20 week moving average would be still another 16% drop. And even if Bitcoin were to drop 10% in a day, you're looking at still approximately a $12,000 Bitcoin. So even during a bearish day where Bitcoin drops 10%, you're still looking at a $12,000 Bitcoin, and still we're still very much macro bullish, especially considering the fact that the price of Bitcoin was at 10K like a month and a half ago. And we also identified, I know people might not like that I talk about the 20-week moving average so much, but here's a great example of we lived through it, right? You guys saw my exhausting videos on the 20-week moving average, testing it as support week after week, and probably getting tired of the fact that I wasn't talking about much of anything else. But you look back and you say, you know what, this was a critical time, and every test of the 20-week was, as it should have been, because the 20-week was moving up, was a little bit higher. Essentially every single day, for the most part, we were moving up. We came back up and back down. We did not go back down to 10K. We went back down to the 20-week, right? And that's the important line of support for the bulls, right? This is the line of support that we want to hold. And now that we are back off to the races. And Bitcoin's killing it right now. I think there's a decent chance that we will spend a significant amount of time between 12K and 14K. So between this region, you can see we spent, as I noted earlier, we spent around 87, 88, something like that, 89 days between 8,600 and 10K. We spent around 88, 86 days or so between 10K and 12K. I think there's still a good chance we're going to spend a lot of time between 12K and 14K. I know that goes against what many of you might believe is happening. I'm sure there's a lot of people that think we're going to see a $20,000 Bitcoin in the next couple months or so. And I'm not going to say it can't happen, right? I'm not going to say it can't happen. If it does happen, I don't think it would be sustained, right? So, and we've said this on the channel all along. Bitcoin can always see short-term bubbles, right? There's nothing preventing Bitcoin from looking at short-term bubbles. And if we do go to 20K, then we'll see if we can sustain it. I doubt it, but we'll see. We'll see if we can sustain it. And but my contention here is that you should at least be prepared for some sideways movement in different regimes, because these moves here were also very exciting, right? When we went from 3,800 to like 10K in a few months, it was also very exciting, but it still cooled down for 3 months. And then when we moved from 9K up to 12K, it was very exciting as well, but we still cooled back down for 3 more months. So in the same manner, this is an exciting move. There's still a reasonable chance that we cool down for a few months, right? And it wouldn't be the end of the world if we just move sideways between 12 and 14K for the next several months. That would actually be fairly bullish in the idea of just stepping stones to the next to reaching our prior all-time high, and sometimes recognizing that sometimes we go up a couple steps and then dip back some. So just something to be aware of. Again, I just trade the risk levels, but this is just to give you an idea of what could happen, what I think is going to happen. I think it's going to take longer, but at the end of the day, be prepared for anything. And if a bubble does transpire, then I just want to tell you now that I think you should come up with a plan for how you're going to manage that bubble, because the FOMO can get the better of you. And I don't know exactly where Bitcoin could go if a bubble were to occur. The contention is that we don't know where it's going to go, and that's why it's important to take profits along the way. But this is where we are. I still think we're fairly early in the market cycle. I think we're going to see this drag out for a really long period of time. I don't think it's just going to be a 12-month sprint to the finish. I think it's going to take a lot longer than that, and have plenty of time to reaccumulate at higher levels. So if we take a quick look at Ethereum, Ethereum is doing exactly what it needs to do as well. Spending that time within the regression band plenty of different times, giving great times to reaccumulation, right? And then popping above it every once in a while. But we still haven't seen anything major for Ethereum. I mean, I know going from $80 to 400 is pretty great, but we still want to see what we want to see, right? Is a much larger formation. The price really go parabolic, several $1,000s over the next few years. So, as I've said before, at this stage of the market cycle, we are still playing in the sandbox. We can make trades here and there to try to increase our positions, but at the end of the day, we are still playing in the sandbox, and that we are preparing ourselves for what the market could be like in a few years. Or if you believe the 4-year cycle, which I don't think is true, but if you believe it, then you're preparing for next year, right? So I know I've been incredibly critical of the 4-year cycle, and I still think it's incorrect, but I recognize that a lot of you do follow it. So I at least just want to say, what, if you are following it and it turns out that you are right, then just be prepared for that too, right? If you see $100,000 Bitcoin or something in 12 months, don't fall for the idea that it has to go to like 500,000, okay? Don't fall for the idea that it has to go to 1 million in the short term. Recognize that the returns are diminishing, and by the way, even 4-year cycle theorists will tell you that the returns are likely diminishing each cycle, okay? And I mean, this is very, very obvious. So whatever it is, recognize that the top will likely not be like $1 million or $500,000, even though when $100,000 Bitcoin comes, the people buying Bitcoin at that level will likely tell you that that's coming, because, well, they wouldn't be buying Bitcoin at 100K if they didn't think it had the capacity to continue going up another significant amount. So Ethereum's doing quite well. If we look at the Ethereum Bitcoin ratio, then we can see where we currently are. We have bled a significant amount. Sorry for all the little squiggles. We have the Ethereum Bitcoin ratio has bled a significant amount. It makes sense considering Bitcoin's continued volatility. Remember, Ethereum's paradise is to see Bitcoin be bullish but not go up too quickly, and so far Bitcoin is just not cooling down at all. It is still just moving up week over week, and so far the Ethereum Bitcoin ratio has just been bleeding since then. I will remind you, if you guys do enjoy the content and you like the approach I provide, please subscribe to the channel so you can see future streams, and also give the video a thumbs up. We have 138 likes and 842 viewers. So please give the video a thumbs up if you guys like the content, and turn on your notifications if you want to be notified of future videos. But make sure you subscribe at the very least. Link is also doing quite well, and we'll continue to follow that one. Obviously, it's at 1274. Again, I've never had any concerns with Link. I mean, I've been holding Link a long time. It's really never let me down. So Link is certainly one that we'll need to follow through this market cycle. And the same thing applies for Link as Bitcoin and Ethereum. I contend that it's too risky not to hold. I'm not saying you should go buy it now. I mean, it's fairly. I mean, it just moved up like 60% over the last few weeks. But if you find yourself with an opportunity to buy it during, say, like some retracement or something, my contention for Link, and it has been for a long time now, is that it's too risky not to hold. We set it at $2. I'll say it at $20. Might not say it at $200, but it's still, I think it's too risky not to hold some Link for the duration of the market cycle. So with that said, I'll try to answer questions. If you guys have any, I have been completely ignoring the chat so far. I will take a look in a minute though. Let me just delete some of this stuff so we can actually see it a little bit more clearly. And by the way, remember, if you guys do like the content, you can check out the premium list at intothe.cryptoverse.com. So check it out. And also you can check out the Telegram channel at I'll post the Telegram chat in the YouTube comments so you guys can follow the Telegram chat. All right, price is at 13,326. We'll see what happens. We'll see if it can make a run at 14K, or if some other coins start moving. I mean, maybe Ethereum will pick up some steam here, but I still would like to see Bitcoin cool down a little bit before I really think Ethereum can make a run at like $500. I think with a $13,000 Bitcoin, there's no reason Ethereum can't be $500, but it's just the nature as to how we get there. If Bitcoin just chills at $1,300 for a few weeks, I think there's a great chance that Ethereum can make a run at $500. If Bitcoin continues going up, then the focus of the market is going to remain on Bitcoin until it calms down. And I've said this before, right? When Bitcoin makes the move, the rest of the market watches. All right, so I think with all that said, we'll try to. Sorry, I'm just now looking at some of the comments. Someone says, how come Ethereum was making runs before Bitcoin? Well, I mean, it was because Bitcoin was above the 20-week, right? I mean, Bitcoin was above the 20-week and moving sideways. This is Ethereum's paradise. This is an altcoin paradise. You want Bitcoin above the 20-week and moving sideways. The minute it starts moving up or down, it's bad. It's bad for other coins. So. I just posted the premium list link in case anyone wants to join. It's an exciting time, and I'm sure we'll have many more streams for the next several years covering all these price levels. Like, if you go back and look at my live streams, there's like, Bitcoin breaks 8K and then Bitcoin breaks 9K and now it's 10K and then now it's looking at like 13K. It'll be interesting to like look at all these live streams. I know the title of this one doesn't have 13K in it, but it'll be interesting to look back at all these live streams in like a few years and just kind of watch our slow move up and remember all those nights we were watching the price of Bitcoin go past like certain levels, right? Like go past 13K. I'm sure if Bitcoin ever does get to 100K, we'll look back and say, oh, that was a fun night. Little did we know we were we were just getting started. I think it's more than little did we know. I think we do expect it to go there, but um, it should be quite the journey to get there. Nick Brown says, do you think there's an opportunity cost in owning precious metals slash stocks against crypto? So, this is a good question. I will say I do own more stocks than crypto, and that probably doesn't make sense to a lot of you, because you might say, well, why? I mean, the return on crypto is amazing. I would say that there are some stocks that I talk about that have actually seen better returns recently than crypto. I mean, Tesla has gone up like 10x in a relatively short period of time. Um, and Tesla is one that I hold and is one that I talk about a lot, or a lot, maybe once a month or so. But if you had looked at crypto back in 2017 and we saw the price go from like $1,000 to $20,000 within 1 year, you could have someone, I'm sure plenty of people cashed out a lot of stocks to then move into crypto because they said, well, I mean, it's gone up 20x, there's a good chance it'll go up again, but it didn't, right? And then they lost a lot of money. So it's about, I'd say it depends on what your goals are, right? I mean, my goal is to grow my wealth, but I also want to protect the lion's share of my wealth, right? I don't want to um, put all of my wealth on the line on the idea that Bitcoin has to go up 10x, right? I just don't want to do that. I think that Bitcoin will go up 10x, but I don't, like I've said before, like I don't want to bet the family farm on it, and I'd rather put the bulk of my money in in stocks and in mutual funds, index funds, that sort of stuff. Precious metals is a tricky one because there's definitely an argument for holding it, right, as a hedge against inflation, as a hedge against, well, maybe not inflation, but as a hedge against when the economy is doing poorly. Bitcoin is a hedge against inflation, but when the economy is doing poorly, precious metals, gold tends to do pretty well, and um, the issue I think with holding too much precious metal is that if you actually look at the Sharpe ratio of precious metals, if you calculate out like the efficient frontier for gold, silver, platinum, and palladium, the Sharpe ratio is only like 0.5, and for stocks, for like a nice basket of stocks, it's 1, which means from a risk management, from in terms of risk adjusted returns, it's much more attractive to buy stocks than it is precious metals. And I mean, we can argue about that all you want, but that's what the data says. And if you look at the price of gold for the last 20 years, it really hasn't done that much of a remarkable thing. I think that there's a good chance it will for the next several years. I think it could easily trend upwards. But if you look over the macro scale, stocks tend to do better, and that's why I say for precious metals, it's okay to hold a small percentage. This is not financial advice. It's okay to hold a small percentage, but I personally wouldn't be putting like 30% of my net worth into precious metals or anything close to it. So for me personally, I would prefer to focus more on crypto than precious metals. I do have a little bit of precious metals. Um, I have a small amount, but if the I would say the primary risky investments that I have are cryptocurrency, and the goal is to ride the momentum shifts, get in during phases of times where it's good to get in, and then slowly move out, and then just slowly build the wealth, right? Well, I mean, maybe not so slowly if it goes up 10x, but like if crypto goes up 10x, that's great. But what I don't understand is people that just kind of throw everything on Bitcoin and whatever and just hold it forever. Like you literally never sell, because then you watch your net worth go up so much, like many people did in 2017 and maybe early 2018, and then you watch it just disappear. And I think it's better to dynamically take profits during bubbles, recognizing that you just don't know where the top is, and if you sell some earlier, like in hindsight, you look back and you say, I sold some, I wish I hadn't sold some. You just have to say, you know what, I was up like 4x at the time or something, like it was a good sell, but I still left some on the table to sell it at higher prices. So that's the idea anyways. And that's the focus of the channel. All right, it's saying, you know what, I can't time the top, I can't time the bottom, but what I would like to do is at least move into the market when it makes sense to move in, and slowly move out when it makes sense to move out. And if I don't time the top or if I don't time the bottom perfectly, that's okay. I was never going to do that anyways, so I might as well accept that and come up with a plan to compensate for it. And by doing that, it basically guarantees that you won't sell everything at the top because you're just dynamically selling, but it at least gives you the opportunity to get pretty darn close to it. And then you look back and you say, you know what, I didn't know where the peak was, but I did the best I could. And an example of that would be, say, looking at 2017, and say maybe you sell some at like at 3K, and then at 5K, and then maybe like 8K or something, and then probably 10K. I feel like 10K would have been a reasonable amount. And then, maybe not even 20K. Maybe like 15 or 16K. And then you look back on it, right, in a few years, and you say, yeah, like maybe this one was a bit early, but I didn't know that at the time. Or, this one was also a bit early, but I didn't know. And by the way, that my strategy is not to sell an equal amount. My strategy is to linearly scale it up. So for instance, if I'm selling one Bitcoin here, I'm selling two here, three here, three here, four here, and five here. So it's being weighted to the upside. So when you're playing, when the risk is still relatively low, you're selling a lot less, but as it moves up, then you want to increase it. So the idea is you save a majority of it for later in the cycle, but you also sell some in case it doesn't continue going up. And a key example of that was 2014, right? I mean, it peaked at 14K, and for those that were waiting for it to continue to go up, right, you probably watched your portfolio go up like 4x and then come all the way back down. So at least by taking profits, it makes it so that you never let a good bubble go to waste. And that's my general thinking. Never let a good bubble go to waste. Always take advantage. Don't think that it'll go up forever, because it won't. And then just kind of respect that. That's my strategy. I understand it doesn't fit well with everyone's strategy, but if you're looking for my perspective, that's my perspective. And that's what I'll use for the market cycle. So let me see if we have any more questions. All right, I'm just going to scroll up and look at some of the questions here. Chad says, we're trying to get your attention. He needs to pay more attention to us. I'm not. Well, if you have a question, you can ask it. Ibrahim says, you are a shame to the Bitcoin project. I guess I'll write that off as a troll and say goodbye. Let's see what other questions. Cultivate crypto. Glad you like the content. Rodrigo says, would you wait to buy more when it touches the 20-week moving average again, or better buy now just in case it keeps going up? It depends on what your risk tolerance is, of course. Obviously, if you assume we're in a bull run, then buying at the 20-week is historically the best time to buy, right? I mean, that was our bull market support last cycle. Um, so buying at the 20-week seems to be a generally good place to buy if it goes down there. And by the way, the 20-week right now is at around 10,600. Um, Sorry, I'm just trying to scroll through the comments. Um, 126 Bitcoin says, why do altcoins lose value whenever Bitcoin goes up or down? Kind of too harsh on altcoins. That's just the way it works, man. I mean, it kind of sucks. Life's not fair. My general thinking is build a bridge and get over it because that's just how the market works. Um, Someone says Litecoin seems to be doing okay. Do you think it will continue? I generally stay away from Litecoin until Bitcoin gets to the prior all-time high. So once that happens, I'll take a look more at it. I've looked at it on the stream in the past, but I don't want to keep saying the same thing. Thoughts on DOT? I think DOT is a decent one to hold, but there's not enough data to really come up with something that we can have like data insights on. I am still sick. What are your thoughts on Chainlink? You guys know I like Chainlink. I hold Chainlink. It's one that I think it's too risky not to hold. Someone says, how do you plot the 20-week moving average on the 1 hour chart? Well, you take 20 weeks and you multiply it by 7 days a week times 24, I guess. I've never actually looked at the 20-week moving average on the 1 hour chart, but let me get out my calculator and we can quickly pull it up. So let's see. So 20 weeks, 7 days a week, 24 hours, so 3360. Let's see if that works. Hopefully I didn't make a math error. 3360. Um, yeah, so here it is. So it's just if you want to plot the 20 week on the hourly time frame, just put in 3360. So it's just 20 weeks times 7 days a week times 24 hours. So you can see the 20-week moving average on the hour time frame by doing 3360. Someone says, "Do you really have a calculator in my pocket?" Yes, it's called a cell phone. Someone says, "Do you think it's more appropriate to chart alts against USD or Bitcoin?" I think Bitcoin. I usually, we talk about it on the channel, we usually show Bitcoin for the most part, and also look at it in terms of USD. But I think looking at assets against Bitcoin is better. By the way, I've also found that people in crypto longer tend to appreciate plotting altcoins against Bitcoin more. But when you're new, most people that are new like only want to see it in USD. But once you've been around long enough, you start to appreciate like the reasoning for plotting it against Bitcoin. Let me know if you guys agree with that. Like when you first started with crypto, you probably were more interested in the USD pairings for altcoins, but after you've been in it for a few years, you probably recognize the importance of the Bitcoin pairing. Let me know in the comments if you guys agree with that. And I mean, I think one thing too that I see on channels a lot, right, is a lot of us can get mad at each other, having different theories. Where I mean, just when I saw Bitcoin pumping, there was some people saying, oh, like it's a fake out, it's gonna retrace immediately. Then other people were saying, oh no, it's gonna go up to 14K, and then there was bickering. Um, at the end of the day, like we're all just trying to make money, right? And if Bitcoin goes to 100K, if you're on the right side of that, we're all just gonna make money together. So like let's just do it together, right? Let's and I understand that I'm not always on the right side of things. Like definitely there have been some points that I tend to be contentious on. I'm trying to get better about it. Um, I mean, for instance, like the 4-year cycle theory is one. I think it's not. I don't think there's that much evidence for it, but at the same time, I think that I should at least give people. I shouldn't just overly criticize anyone that thinks it's right, right? Because at the end of the day, like we all just want to make money, and if we make it when I think we're gonna make it in later in the cycle, like 2022, 2023, probably 2023 or so, great. But if we all get rich next year, like that's even better. So I still think, I mean, this is a key point, right? I still think lengthening cycle theory is true, but I do know that with the recent price movement, a lot of people are getting excited. A lot of people want to see Bitcoin go to 20K in the short term and then go up to 100K, right? Whatever happens, we're going to be ready for it, right? Whatever happens, we'll be ready for it. If it turns out that I'm wrong, right? If it turns out that lengthening cycle theory is just wrong and I got it wrong, then so be it, right? I'll swallow my pride, but you know what? We'll still say, okay, we recognize that if Bitcoin's at 100K next year, like we still need to take profits, right? We set the dignity aside, take profits, have a better life. Okay, this is the idea. So I'm trying to get better about that. Remember, my channel only started in 2019, so I'm not really, my channel just kind of exploded rather quickly. So I'm still trying to get accustomed to speaking in front of, hundreds of people. So, but anyways, like I think that at the very least, we're gonna see Bitcoin go back up to 20K. I think it'll take longer. I think it'll take another year before we get a sustained 20K. But if we get there sooner, then great. And we'll continue on up the chain and see where it can take us. But yeah, and I think there's gonna be a ton of money to be made on coins like Ethereum, especially at key phases of the cycle. Like imagine a world where Bitcoin slows down at 13K, or let's say it's super bullish and goes to 14K and goes sideways at 14K. Like Ethereum is getting primed, in my opinion, like primed for a move. The only thing that needs to happen is Bitcoin just needs to go sideways, and that could come after Bitcoin dropping, right? If Bitcoin drops to 12K and then goes sideways, then Ethereum could still have a breakout. People would be bearish and probably not expect it, but still, Bitcoin has just done so well recently that even a 10% pullback would still leave Ethereum fairly bullish if Bitcoin goes sideways at that level. So, um, Ethereum is definitely one we want to follow, and you can see that starting in 2020, it was a key shift, right, in the valuation of Ethereum against Bitcoin, and we've been at the bottom of this range several times, and every single time we popped back up. Now I don't know if it's going to pop down immediately. I mean, we actually came below this imaginary line back in May. It's possible we come below it again. But remember, as we've spoken about before, buying Ethereum in December with Bitcoin tends to be a pretty good buy. So if Bitcoin goes sideways, but it doesn't go sideways long enough to really fuel an Ethereum rally, and then let's say Bitcoin goes to 14K in December or something, it could be a huge opportunity on Ethereum to buy Ethereum with Bitcoin in that scenario, in the hopes of a continued Ethereum rally against Bitcoin over the macro scale. Again, I can't tell you what's going to happen on any single day, but looking at the macro trend, it generally seems like Ethereum's moving up with respect to Bitcoin. Sorry, let me just look at the some of the questions. Sorry, if you guys had questions before and I missed it, you just have to ask it again because I'm not gonna scroll too far up on the channel. Remember, if you guys do like the content, please subscribe. We'll try to get to 50,000 subscribers by the end of the year. I'm actually not on pace to hit it. I'm on pace to get to the upper 40s if you and I have plotted it out. I'm sure you're not that surprised. But still shooting for 50,000 subscribers. So if you guys like the content, please subscribe and give the video a thumbs up. Someone says, "Are we currently in the regression band?" Yeah, we are. Um, the top of the regression band is actually at like 14K. So I mean, 14K is where the top of it is. So we still have about another $1,000 or so to go before we get to the top because the top is at 14.3. The top of the regression band, as it's drawn, is at 14.3, which is essentially $1,000 above where Bitcoin currently is. Al says rule number one, always hodl some Bitcoin. Rule number two, never forget rule number one. Shout out to Al. He's actually in the public Telegram channel and he regularly posts really interesting stats like if you had purchased various coins on March 12th or March 13th or whatever it was, like how they would be doing against each other and forwarding liquidated shorts and longs. So shout out to you for keeping the chat going. Someone says, have you plotted how Bitcoin affects your subs? Actually, I have. If you go back and watch the April Fool's video this year on April 1st, I actually plot. Uh, I look at the number of subs, new sub, like the number of people on the channel versus the price of Bitcoin. What do I think of all-inning on Link instead of diversifying? I think diversifying is better, but if you were to have gone all in on a coin 2 years ago, Link would have definitely been the coin to do it on, or at least one of the coins to do it on. Also, give the video a thumbs up if you guys like it. We're at 327 likes. Someone says you haven't said much about Uni in a while. So the Uniswap governance token is one we will cover more on the channel. It's just that the main time when I anticipate price appreciation of Uni is when altcoins are going crazy. And that's when whether it makes sense or not, right? That's when exchanges like Uniswap will be like just crazy, and I could see the Uniswap token then pumping like crazy as well. But as long as Bitcoin is moving up like as long as Bitcoin's going up like $1,000 a week on average or something, then most altcoins are going to take a back seat. So I would just sit tight and wait for altcoins to start moving, and I imagine that Uni will do quite well. Someone says, will you start covering different coins like ADA? I mean, I actually I do cover ADA. I have a whole ADA playlist. I do a video on ADA like once a month or so. So ADA is my primary hedge against Ethereum. Also Polkadot I think is a good hedge. So ADA, Polkadot, we do occasional videos on those. I think I only have one dedicated video to Polkadot, but I actually do cover it a lot on live streams. So we do cover other coins. We also have covered Monero as well. Someone says the fear greed index is at 76. Do you consider that variable a good indication of a correction incoming? So I think one issue, and I think it's generally a good thing to take a look at, but you also have to remember that they didn't launch it until like 2018. So if it's like normalized, or I don't know, I haven't looked into it a ton, but like I think the fear and greed reached like upper 90s in 2019 when it was at 14K. Um, but there was no measure of what it would have been at 20K after it had gone up like 100x in the short term. So I don't really know. I mean, it's probably useful. I don't think that it's necessarily a bad thing. Remember, all models are wrong, but some are useful. So you might as well be exposed to as many models as you can get exposed to, and then try to figure out which ones make sense, which ones don't, so you can figure out how to use it in your investments. ADA is not my third biggest coin in my portfolio. I'm sure many of you guys can guess what it is. It's not ADA. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's Link. I mean, it has to be Link, right? Um, Again, it's plotting Link against Bitcoin. And I mean, at the end of the day, like I don't really care if you like Link or not. Like I understand there's a lot of people that don't like it. Um, but when I look at it on the macro scale and its trend against Bitcoin, and my contention here, right, is what is there not to like, right? And what is there not to like? You take advantage of the bubbles by DCAing your cells in the bubbles, and then you just get back in. By the way, if you follow the premium list into the cryptoverse.com, the highest sell that I did was at 1850. And so it wasn't quite the top. $20 was the top, but it also meant I actually did buy in at the like a little below $8 and then a little below $9 a few weeks ago. It was all on the premium list. So, um, but yeah, the idea is like, what do you not like about this type of trend? And so I go where the trend is. And when we first started covering this coin, a lot of people said, well, it's not going to continue, right? But it has. I mean, it has continued, and so I think there's a good chance it will continue, doing its thing, and until it changes, right? Until the trend changes, why expect it? Like why not hop on board? Is my thinking. Now, with that said, I'm not buying Link at $12. Like, let me just clearly say that. Like, I'm not buying Link at $12, but I do own a lot, and I already bought a lot. So just keep that in mind. I mean, like if you see it dip again against USD or something, and you have some USD and you want to pick it up, like you might consider it. Actually, against Bitcoin, it's still fairly down right now. So it might. I mean, with this Bitcoin rally, it means that against. And this is why looking at the Bitcoin ratio is so important, is because like okay, maybe if you were accumulating Link with USD, it wouldn't be that great, but actually the Bitcoin ratio for Link is actually fairly low still. Um, and so what that means is like, well, if you put USD on Bitcoin a month ago and it's rallied 30%, and let's say Link didn't really do a whole lot and it stayed the same USD, but the ratio went down, then you could buy 30% more Link with the Bitcoin. Sorry, let me look at some of the questions. There's a lot of questions here. Sorry, I need to check something on my phone really quick. All right. How many more link bubbles like the recent one do you expect through the course of this bull run? I can't really say, right? I mean, let's just take a look together and try to get an idea. So, let's look to see what's happened. Let's just take it from 2019. So starting in 2019, we had one, two, three-ish, four, and five. Let's put this one, and now let's actually add this one because this was a so six. Let's say we had six. Now, if you want to be a little bit more conservative, right, and say that this was one bubble, and let's not even include this one because it was already halfway up when the year started. So even if we just had four, this is against Bitcoin, by the way. I mean, it's definitely possible to have two, three, four a year against Bitcoin, and and to just try to take advantage. I mean, I think that as time goes on, we'll probably have less each year, just because I mean, Link is already up 100x against Bitcoin over the last 2 years, but I still think there could easily be two or three bubbles a year. So over the course of against Bitcoin, and it also depends on what you mean by a bubble. Like, do you consider because the definition of a bubble can be very different, right? Do you consider a 150% move followed by a 30% drop a bubble, or does it need to be a 600% move followed by a 50% drop? So it somewhat depends on what your definition of bubble is. Like, I mean, here was another move that was several 100%. So if you're looking at, say, several 100% moves, then you might consider, okay, maybe only one or two a year. But if you think that like a 50% move or a 100% move counts as a bubble followed by like a 30% retracement, then you could easily anticipate maybe three or four a year, assuming just the trend continues. Someone says my did my resolution go down or something? I don't know. Some people are saying I'm not blurry. Some people are saying it's blurry. It doesn't really matter. You guys don't need to see me anyways. The charts are more important. It's funny because like right when I said to refresh the page, my stream started reloading. So like maybe telling 800 people to reload it, I don't know, maybe it's not a good idea. I don't think it should affect it, but it was just interesting because right after I said reload the page, like my stream started buffering. Well, it looks like price of Bitcoin still at 13.3, so nothing really too remarkable going on right now. Yeah, Bitcoin trades 24/7. Yeah, I've looked at DXY. I have a couple videos on it actually. There's a couple videos where maybe I talk about it if you just search my channel for like 4x or something. I think I talk about the dollar, the strength of the dollar. I can't. Someone says they have a long open and wondering if they should sell. I can't tell you. I don't talk about leverage trading here. Which by the way is also I don't have any referral links. I have no AdSense on, no paid promotions, none of that. Right. The only thing I have is the premium list at intothecryptoverse.com. So you guys can check it out if you want. Um, Basically, the premium list just has like weekly reports, weekly videos, uh, a premium alerts channel, a chat room, and a risk dashboard, which is what I used to trade. By the way, the premium list video this week was actually on GBTC, so the Grayscale Bitcoin Investment Trust, and last week it was actually on gold and the risk metric for gold. So it's a different topic every week. I don't have super chat enabled. It's not 24/7. David says, "Hey Ben, I know you focus on Bitcoin, Ethereum, Link, and ADA, but what do you think about VeChain? I think VeChain could do well during a bull market. I just at some point you just can't cover every single coin, right? And if you're trying to follow trends in certain coins, it's just if I'm making a video about a different coin every day, it becomes a little bit too cumbersome for people to follow. So that's why I mainly just focus on a few coins." Casa Murphy says at least add a tip jar for those boys who can't commit to the premium channel. If you can't, if the premium channel is too much, right? I mean, and I don't want your tips, right? I mean, it's nothing. It's just like invest it, right? And invest it if it's, if that's kind of where you are. You don't need to tip me. I feel like the best thing you could do for me would just be to subscribe and give the video a thumbs up. That'd be the best thing. So that's why I don't have super chat enabled. Some people tip me on Brave, but I really would encourage you not to do so. I haven't looked at at that in a while. So in fact, if you are on Brave and you have crypto and you want to tip people, you shouldn't tip crypto people, right? Because we're already in it. Like you should try to find people that aren't really talking about crypto, and if they have it enabled, right, then you tip them. Because then that could get them more interested in crypto. But tipping me crypto through Brave or something like just I would say do it, give it to someone else, right? Who who might not be as invested or interested in crypto. And if you give it to them, it could get them excited, and then just continues to kind of spread around. So yeah, that's kind of my sentiment on it. David says, "What would be your plan with crypto if Bitcoin goes to 100K? I'm thinking about looking into rental properties at that point." I think rental properties could be a good thing. There's also, you could put it into mutual funds. There's a lot to be said about just putting it in mutual funds because a lot of times, and I know there's tons of people that'll swear by real estate, and I probably will buy some real estate as well. But from a practical perspective, investing it, just putting it in like the market in like an index fund or something can oftentimes perform better than real estate because you don't have to worry about paying for the house. Like you don't have to have a down payment. You don't have to deal with tenants, right? You don't have to deal with fixing things like if things break in the house. So like it's a headache, and in addition to it being a headache, you also might underperform the market. So I think buying up properties is probably a good thing just to have diversification, because if stocks do crash, you don't want all your net worth in stocks, right? So it's good to be diversified, but I still would have the personally I would have the lion's share in the stock market, not in like like a lot of different rental properties or anything like that. But I still think it could be a good way to diversify, especially if you find yourself with a huge sum of money. You want to put some of it in the stock market, buy up maybe like a couple properties, rent them out, just have different revenue streams, right? If you can create these like secondary revenue streams, it can be helpful. And one idea, of course, with rental properties is you get the house, but you just have your tenants pay for it. But I mean, like there are some issues, like for people who do like Airbnb, that kind of stuff, who've been doing that. I mean, they got really hammered hard during COVID. So, there's a lot of different strategies. I think real estate could be good, but just recognize that I would personally prefer more of my wealth to be in the stock market. But interest rates are really low right now, so at least you have that going for you on mortgages. Nick says, "Why don't you turn on ads on your YouTube videos?" One of the reasons, there's several reasons, but one of the reasons is, and I'm sure you guys have seen them, like, how a lot of the ads you'll see on YouTube videos are like those scam streams or whatever? Like, the idea, like, I hate the idea of anyone ever clicking on my video and it running an ad and it being one of those scams. And so that's probably one of the main reasons I don't have it on. It's just so like I know that if people are clicking on my video, they're not going to see that crap, right? They're not going to see that crap, and I don't want to propagate that stuff either. So that's one of the reasons. There's other reasons too, of course. I mean, for instance, like if I'm trying to get people to view the channel, if you have to watch an ad and then you have to watch another ad halfway through or something, it just gets pretty obnoxious, right? And I just know that from my own personal experience. Like when I watch YouTube videos, like I hate having to view different ads. So that's why I don't have it enabled. Gregory says, "Do you think the stock market will crash after the quantitative easing finishes?" I've talked about the stock market a lot. 40% drops like we saw earlier this year don't happen that often. And back in March, I made a video telling people that the risk on the stock market was incredibly low and it was a great time to be moving into the market. And it really was. And you're going to see a lot of people on YouTube and Twitter that'll be sensational, and they'll say the stock market's going to crash, and they'll say the real estate market's going to crash. But yes, there can be corrections, but a lot of people operate on recency bias and the '08 financial crisis. I think that the Fed, had they stepped in earlier, probably could have prevented a lot of that stuff, but they weren't as aggressive as they should have been, in my opinion. So now I just don't think that we're going to see quite the same type of crisis. Like, yeah, there can be corrections in the market, of course. There always are corrections in the market, but in terms of watching something completely crash, I think the chances are actually relatively low, and that's just the way I operate. I don't and there's a lot of doomsdayers out there that'll tell you every single year that the market's going to crash next year, and it doesn't. But if they say it every year, eventually they'll be right, and then they take credit. There's definitely some people I'm thinking of, and I'm not talking about crypto, by the way. So if you follow, there's a lot of people ask me like, oh, well, do you follow any other crypto YouTube channels? I used to before I started my own channel. Now I don't, because I don't want any other ideas getting into my head, because if someone says something about any coin and then I see what they're talking about, then it's probably hard for me to visualize it in any other way than the way they already explained it. So I just tend to not tune into that stuff anymore. I did used to watch a lot of crypto YouTube when I was in graduate school. From 2013 to 2018, I wanted to start my own YouTube channel, but I knew that if I started it, I would never finish my PhD because it would just be too addicting, right? It would be too much fun to do this type of stuff, and I would never finish my PhD. So I waited until I got my PhD, and then so I graduated in 2018. But I thought that would have been a terrible time to launch a YouTube channel on crypto because it was 2018. So I waited until 2019 to launch it. So it launched in 2019. But I do watch some YouTube stuff, but it's generally not crypto. It's other markets. But there's a lot of people that'll tell you, every single year that everything's going to crash, and then when it does finally come back down, then they start telling you there's a huge depression coming, like this is the end as we know it. Truly sensationalist, crap, to say it nicely, in my opinion, of course. Um, and then we just continue on, right? I mean, I don't think that it's good to post a video once a week saying that everything's going to crash, right? And there are some crypto people that will say that Bitcoin is going to crash literally in every single video, or every single week they'll put crash in the title of the video. Um, I mean, as far as I can tell, Bitcoin hasn't been crashing so much. I mean, it's mainly just been going up over this year, and so I'm not really sure where they're getting their information from, but they might want to change their approach to the markets, because whatever it is not working. Um, so yeah. Generally, those are generally my thoughts on the market. I don't think that the stock market is going to imminently crash. Um, but I mean, corrections are always possible. Just not 40% crashes don't happen twice a year, right? They just don't. And I actually made a video like a couple weeks ago, on the stock market, and kind of poking fun at the idea that everyone thinks the market's going to crash. By the way, if everyone thought the market was going to crash, it would have already crashed. Okay, if everyone thought it, there's enough people that don't think it, so that it hasn't crashed. So, yeah, I know that you think that it makes sense for it to crash given the economy, but in March, did it make sense for it to rally to new all-time highs if you just look at it from like a rational point of view? No. So if you continue to use what you think is the driver of the market, right? I mean, how many people would have predicted in March that the Nasdaq, the S&P, the Dow would have rallied to all-time highs? Most people would have said that was ridiculous, right? Because it would have been completely irrational. But that's exactly what happened. And if everyone on YouTube is telling you that it's going to crash, just remember, how many times is everyone right? How many times is everyone right? Right? Most people get it wrong. And that's the key thing. Most people get it wrong. How many times are they actually right? If everyone thinks something's going to happen, it generally just doesn't work out like that. I know it might seem counterintuitive, but that's just the truth. So, and I actually did something the other day. Like, if you look at YouTube and you go back a few years, like, and you look at people predicting like what the market's going to do. Like, literally, there's people that say it's going to crash like every single week. So again, anytime the market crashes, there's always going to be someone who was right, because there's always someone calling for it to crash. Okay. Leonardo says bull run beard. My facial hair is actually red. And I'm not really that great at growing a beard, so I probably won't do that. Yeah, it is a Dr. Pepper, because it's really late here and I'm tired, and I saw Bitcoin price moving, so I needed some caffeine to stay awake. My wife gave birth like a week ago, so I'm pretty, I mean, when you have a newborn, you lose sleep. And I also have two other kids that are 4 and 1. So, Yeah, I'm trying to stay awake. Yeah, Julie says, I've noticed these doomsayers who never say that they're wrong, they just say it again next year. That's exactly it, right? You never admit to you're wrong, you just always call for the crash, and then when it happens, you take credit, right? That's the idea. Um, uh, but again, like you really shouldn't bet too frequently against the stock market because generally speaking, you're going to be wrong. The stock market tends to go up over the macro scale. Same thing with Bitcoin, right? It's generally not a good idea to bet against Bitcoin over the macro scale. Yeah, there's going to be times where it gets overextended and it'll retrace, but over the macro scale, you probably shouldn't be betting against Bitcoin. Not financial advice. I have no opinion on the S&P having divergence on the RSI since 1999. I don't think it's relevant. You guys know that I talk about Bitcoin, Ethereum, Link, and ADA, right? So we talk about Bella, Bitcoin, Ethereum, Link, and ADA. If my third child had been a girl, I would have tried to convince my wife to name her Isabella, but it was in fact a third boy. So no such opportunity. It's funny. Like I hear people all the time, like and like saying like, okay, well, the stimulus, if there's a stimulus, the market will pump. Like I think it'll be hilarious, like absolutely hilarious, if the stimulus comes and then the market corrects back down like 5% or something. Um, Another thing is like if you look at these news outlets that talk about like corrections or the stock market, like they'll literally use the same headline and then just like twist it in a different way. So if the stock market goes up one day, they'll say, stock market rallies on hopes of a stimulus, but if the market goes down one day, the next day it'll say stock market, retraces on fears of no stimulus, right? So it's just a matter basically it's trying to come up with a reason, like a news reason why something's happening, rather than thinking that just in the short term on a day to day basis, it could just be a random walk. My PhD was in nuclear engineering, and now I work full time in computational material science. Which is another reason, by the way, why I didn't have AdSense enabled, is because I actually had a full time job. I wasn't just like a full time crypto YouTuber that had to monetize literally every single thing. My PhD is in nuclear engineering. I did my dissertation on radiation damage using molecular dynamics and in situ transmission electron microscopy and ceramics. So that's what my PhD was on. I met my wife dancing actually. What do I think of molten salt reactors and MSRs? Now I could go all day about nuclear engineering stuff, but the problem is I think that it might appeal to a few people here, but for the other 740 people, they wouldn't care. So I'm not going to go off on nuclear engineering tangents right now. But I mean, there's obviously there's plenty to talk about. One common joke, right, is if you're familiar with fusion, nuclear fusion, and a lot of you have probably heard this before. But it's the idea that like fusion's always 20 years away because anytime you ask someone about it, it's always like it's just beyond what you could think about. Like, okay, let's just say it's 20 years away because it's long enough to where you really don't have to answer to anyone immediately if it doesn't happen because you just say it's 20 years away. But it's been 20 years away since the 1950s. I actually, someone says cold fusion. I did a homework problem on cold fusion, and you can like prove. I mean, okay, I'm getting I'm getting carried away. Let's not talk about this because I'll just go off for like an hour. So, so for those who are interested in some of the stuff that I watch, like if you want to jump out of the cryptoverse for for a couple minutes each day, there's a couple there are some channels that are really interesting, and I've mentioned them before. Like one is a very strong mathematics channel. It's called Three Blue One Brown. So if you're interested in mathematics and you want to see it like visualized in really cool ways, check out Three Blue One Brown. It's a great channel. And if you have especially like showing people in like middle school, high school, college, I think that channel can be um, very interesting. There's also another channel I recently started watching. It's kind of interesting. It's called if you guys want to look at it on YouTube, it's called Stuff Made Here. And this guy just makes like ridiculous things. Like he made like a basketball hoop that like when you shoot it, you can't miss. Like it automatically calculates the trajectory of the basketball and tilts the basket and moves it on a wall in a way that it has to go in. So I think that's a pretty funny a pretty interesting channel as well. And he always like plays a prank on his wife usually where he'll make it so the basket has to go in, but then he has like wife mode on every invention that he makes. So when his wife comes to do it, like it makes her miss it, or it makes her do something else. So I think it's interesting, but it's called Stuff Made Here. I think it's an interesting YouTube channel if you haven't seen it before. But yeah, I mean the guy, the Stuff Made Here video, it's just like he's it's a pretty small. Like, I mean, he's actually got way more subscribers than me. He's probably got like a million. I don't know how many, but like there's definitely bigger channels out there that do similar type things. But I think I really like finding the people just where they have the passion, they make the channel, and then they just do it for the hell of doing it, right? And so it's interesting to just follow someone's line of thinking. What's the lowest market cap coin I've ever bought? Um, I mean, I don't want to give you guys the impression I never buy low market cap coins. I just don't talk about them on the channel, right? I don't talk about low market cap coins because I don't want to influence the market. And if you talk about like a coin that has like a $10 million market cap, I mean, you could theoretically influence the market. And when you do that, it's hard to it would appear just like a paid promotion. And a lot of these paid promotions are a lot of these videos that you'll find on YouTube where they talk about low market cap coins. Not all of them, but some of them, they're paid to do it, right? And they get paid up front, and so then you go buy it, and then they sell you their bags, right? So this is, and I'm not saying everyone does that. I'm sure there's a lot of guys that don't, but just the idea that someone could do that is enough to keep me from doing it. So I won't talk about low market cap coins on the channel. Yeah, and I don't want to get labeled as like pumping and dumping or anything like that. I use stable coins, Nick. I don't know about the about paid promotions, like what's okay and what's not. I just avoid them. Yeah, I see some people spamming. I'll go ahead and remove you. So thank you for telling me that you want to be removed. How many exchanges do I use? Three. I hold a lot more Ethereum than ADA. I mean, I'm not going to tell you the exact percentage, but I hold a lot more Ethereum than ADA. ADA is just a hedge. Sorry, we have a lot of spammers in the chat spamming like one word things, so I'm just removing them. K-pop, why do you keep asking the same question? Like, do you trade or just invest? Like, this seems like a spammer kind of question, so I think I'm just gonna remove you too. Someone asked me what time zone I'm in. I'm in Bitcoin time. Bitcoin never sleeps, so how can I? What kind of news would make me sell Bitcoin? Um, or sell out all of it? Well, if the risk level gets to between 0.9 and 1, then I probably would sell it all. The majority of my portfolio is Bitcoin, yes. Make sure you guys subscribe to the channel if you guys like the content and give the video a thumbs up. Maybe we can get to 500 likes. But yeah. Yeah, the risk levels, it's my own stuff. Remember, if you guys want to subscribe to the premium list, you can do so at intothecryptoverse.com. And also remember, you can check out the Telegram channel, and I'll post that in the link below or in the comments as well. Most of my friends are not into crypto, but I do have a couple. I think like two of them are, but most of them are not. Can I teach you how to draw a regression band? I mean, a lot of the regression. I mean, it's just logarithmic regression, right? Is just I mean, it's just like a times the L of x minus b. But if you're looking at like Bitcoin or something that goes up as much as it has, you just 10 raised to all that. Then you can just fit the data, right? I mean, the regression bands really are not that complicated. It's just fitting a simple curve. Those are probably the least complicated things that I do on the channel, apart from just drawing lines on TradingView. So it's really not that complicated. I would just look up like Google like linear regression, and it would only take you a pretty short period of time, I think, to figure it out. I don't remember what version of MATLAB it is. I mean, it might be like 2019. I don't remember. Yeah, I think MicroStrategies and Squares are probably just the beginning of companies getting into Bitcoin. I mean, there's a good chance that institutional money is what it calls it. By the way, Bitcoin is moving down right now, so it's back at 12.9. I just looked up and noticed it, so I guess it just moved back down. Let's check that 1 hour chart because remember, if you remember at the beginning of the stream, we talked about that pattern, right? And we saw the same pattern on the daily time frame. Remember, if you joined at the beginning of the stream, we talked about the move to the top, the move back down, the move back to the top, the move back down, and then the third move being higher than the first two, right? And then this one came back down and then came up. And then this one was a move to the top, a move back down, a move to the top, a move back down, a move to the top, but this one was a little bit higher than the last two, and then move back down. And then this one went down. So then when I was looking at it on the 1 hour time frame, I'm like, oh, it's a similar thing, right? It's a move to the top and a move back down, and a move to the top and a move back down. And a move to the top, and the third move to the top was higher than the first two. So it looks like that trend, not that the hourly time frame is that important, but it does seem like that trend has actually played out again. So I mean, to continue that trend, it would be going all the way back down to 12.7, which is I mean, again, guys, this is still business as usual. I mean, this is still very bullish for Bitcoin. So like this wouldn't even be enough to get out of bed for, right? You know what's funny is like tomorrow, like there'll be at least like 10 videos on YouTube that'll call this a Bitcoin crash. Just look for it. But I mean, like that is a pretty impressive drop, relatively in a very short period of time. But there's going to be plenty of people that are going to call that a Bitcoin crash. Yeah, just remember, guys, remember that a drop in Bitcoin, there's a good chance that altcoins could rally. Okay, so if Bitcoin moves sideways, right? I mean, we want that to happen in terms of altcoins, right? So if Bitcoin can just move sideways, this would be great for Ethereum, and the Ethereum Bitcoin ratio. It's this continued move up that is bad. So it depends on what your focus is, right? If you just want Bitcoin to go up, then obviously you don't really care about altcoins. But if you have an altcoin position, the best thing for you, generally speaking, for most altcoins would be for Bitcoin to just go sideways, right? Someone said we were at this price yesterday. I think we were at this price like a few hours ago. um, I mean, like, yeah, like literally just like not even that long ago, like 5 or 6 hours ago, we were at this price. Someone says Bitcoin going down with investors fearing no tether stimulus injection. Yeah, this is exactly the type of news that like headlines you could see, right? Like it dumps on fears of something, or if it had pumped, it would have been it Bitcoin pumps on hopes of the same thing. Um, you just need something to write about. Let's take a look at the Ethereum ratio against Bitcoin. Actually, I want to look at it on the 1 minute time frame just so we can quickly see what happened. Look at that. Look at that spike. Bitcoin went down, and during that quick move down for Bitcoin, Ethereum spiked up. Remember, if Bitcoin can stay um, uh, not bullish, like if Bitcoin remains bullish, it's bad for Ethereum. But if Bitcoin can go sideways, it would probably be good for Ethereum. Remember to subscribe to the channel if you guys like the content and give the video a thumbs up. Let's try to get to 500 likes. We're almost there. If you subscribe, are you able to send messages? I'm not sure what you're talking about. I mean, I can read your messages right here. Fine. Let's see who can come up with the best headline for tomorrow for Bitcoin that someone will come up with for why it crashed from 13.3 down to 13,000. A huge epic crash of 1%. Like what's a great headline? Like, Bitcoin crashes on fears of, and then like fill in the blank. Yeah, Bitcoin crashes on fear of the upcoming election. I clearly I didn't take a definitive position at the beginning of the stream, but I mean, this was the same, literally exact same trend we had seen just on twice before, just on the 1 hour time frame. So if it does continue, which it could very well not, I mean, it could very well just go back up. But if it does continue, then it would imply a continued drop back down to 12.7 if that pattern were to continue. I don't think I'm actually capable of predicting short-term moves, right? There's a good chance it just goes back up, right? But I'm just saying, like, if that same pattern continues, which it very well could not, then it would imply a move back to 12.7, which would, put it at another 2% drop or so. I don't know. I really don't know. I mean, it could easily rally back up. But when we started the stream, this is what we said. We said, okay, same pattern. We've seen it here on the 1 hour chart. It was the same pattern that we saw before. Let's see if it plays out. Not going to talk about politics, guys. There's no way to talk about politics, and let me just leave it at that. Let's just not talk about politics here. Bitcoin rallies and crashes on news have been comparing 1 hour chart to previous daily chart. Yeah. Bitcoin crashes with no U.S.-China trade deal. So I think Bitcoin dominance over the long term is headed up to 100% or down. I think it's generally headed down, but there's going to be some key phases where it pumps like incredibly high. Like when Bitcoin rallies to 20K, the dominance will probably go up a lot, and then at the very end of the bull market, it'll probably go up a lot too. But I think over the macro scale, it's just, I mean, I don't think, like, right, like look at the data, like it's generally trending down. Oh, thanks. We got to 500 likes. Thanks for helping me get there. Yeah, let me actually do that. Actually, no, that didn't work. I kind of just want to stay on a little bit longer just to see if it comes back to 12.7. Again, I'm not encouraged. Like I don't think this is tradable. I think it's random. But I just kind of want to see. Someone says, "Can I code an automatic DCA bot?" Um, I first of all, like, who says I don't have one? There's a difference between you know, having one and sharing one, right? I mean, um, personally speaking, like, I don't want people, you know, if something were to go wrong with some of the stuff I'm using, um, yeah. So, I mean, like, I don't really plan on like sharing like bots and stuff. I know people have asked me to like make token sets and stuff, but I'm just really not that interested in doing it. At the end of the bull market, do you plan to have Bitcoin and Ethereum only in your portfolio? I'll probably have some other ones as well. Max says on Binance it wicked down to 12,715. I guess we can look. Let's see if it wicked down on Binance. Um, does it not have Binance on here? Oh, here it is. Oh, wait, this is USDT, but let me check some of the other exchanges. Looks like on Bitstamp it went down to 12,909. I mean, I know I could just pull up the markets and look quicker, but um, Bitfinex, it went down to 12,847 or so. Yeah, it did. We'll see where it went on. Let me scroll down. Oh well. I don't know. I don't. We don't need to look at it anymore. I mean, on coin or on here's Bitfinex and went down to 12.85. Let me just switch it back to Coinbase, which is what I had it on. I know a lot of you guys are saying above 14K by tomorrow. We'll see. I tend to think not. I think it's less likely to rally to 14K tomorrow than likely. But we'll see if you're right. So what do you guys think? You think this trend that we saw earlier at the beginning of the stream will play out, like up, down, up, third peak higher, and then back down? We saw that twice. Set identified it earlier at the beginning of the stream. Now it's come part of the way back down, right? I mean, we identified it up here. It's dropped, you know, a little bit since then. It's dropped like, I mean, it hasn't dropped all the way down, but yeah, I mean, it has dropped a little bit here. Um, if it drops all the way down, it'd be kind of an interesting. And remember, if this does repeat, which I have no idea if it will. I mean, one of the things too, if you look at, um, is this third drop as we noted, right? So one of the things we said earlier, right, is that this third drop, if you, I mean, if you actually look at it, right, it didn't come all the way back down. It peaked, or it bottomed like 1 or 2% above it. Um, this one came all the way back down, right? It actually did touch the bottom. So if it were to go 1 to 2% above it, which I mean I have no idea what it's going to do, but yeah, I mean it would basically put it right where it is. But anyways, we'll see what happens. For all we know, it could come back up and then break it and go on up. I just wasn't. I saw, I was like looking at the price and it was 13.3, and I looked over and answered a question, and I looked back and it was like in the 12,000s, and I was like, oh, what the hell just happened? Like, I'm back at 13. I mean, I think what's more interesting to consider is that if Bitcoin does continue going sideways, as we said, that would be good for, that'd be good for altcoins, right? And then maybe we'll have some live streams where we focus more on altcoins, because this is where altcoins can do quite well, is on these Bitcoin moves sideways. Any privacy coins I like? I mean, I talk about Monero on the channel. So there's a Monero playlist if you want to go watch it. I haven't actually looked at the Monero price while on stream, but I can pull it up. My guess is it's still around like 125 or okay, it's actually doing it's at 128. So yeah, it's at 128 right now. I already talked about uni earlier, so just scroll back. All right, if you ask about Malcolm X again, I'm gonna hide you from the channel. All right, what other questions do you guys have? When will alts die? I mean, I think there's an alt dying every day, probably. Free Warrior says, "What's your long-term prediction of the price of Bitcoin around 3 years from now?" Probably right between 140 to 140K. And again, it just goes back to, looking at the BLX and looking at our regression band, recognizing that cycles are likely lengthening, and so if I just quickly show, right, even if you go from bottom to top, which is the easiest way to do it, right, 304 days, 762 days, right? I didn't draw that right. 1,065 days. So if we make the next one longer, let's put it, at like 1,400 days or something. So if we assume that the cycle peaks, it takes longer this cycle, it'll put us out, 2023, 2022, 2024, somewhere out here probably. And so in 3 years, so 3 years from today would be October of 2023. So it'd be around here. So if we peak around that point and we come up to the upper part of the logarithmic regression band, right? So if we continue on up to a prior all-time high of 20K and then go parabolic, it would put us around 100 to 140K in about 3 years. Okay, and then we probably would come back down to the regression band, something like that. Hope that answers the question. Someone says, how often do you adjust the regression band? I have not adjusted this one, like, ever. Like, I published this one, like, over a year ago. I talked about it on YouTube. I haven't touched it. In fact, the last time, the only data it was fit to was through, to non-bubble data through the end of 28 or early 2019. It has not been fit to any data past, like, January or February, I think, of 2019. So it's been almost 2 years um, of data that has been completely ignored. I don't really see Ethereum passing Bitcoin. I mean, if it does, it probably will be short lived. This is not a dump. It's not a dump. I mean, this was the price of Bitcoin. Literally, if we go back, it was the price of Bitcoin, 17 hours ago, 16 hours ago. I would not consider this to be a dump. Like a 1 to 2% move or something is not a dump, I think. There are sometimes dips in the stock market around election time, but it tends to continue on and correct back up right pretty soon after. Yeah, I think Ethereum could outperform Bitcoin, but you're paying for that ROI with units of risk. It's just more volatility. There is a CME gap at 3,500, but it's a 4-hour gap, and I think it's even more ridiculous to think we have to fill that one than the 1 day win, which I also think is ridiculous that people think we have to fill it. If Bitcoin gets to a million, I think if Bitcoin gets to a million, it'll take it another 20 years, to be completely honest. So I am getting tired. The yawn probably gave it away. I'm curious if my yawn inspired any of you guys to yawn, because it is contagious. You guys think we should you guys think we should wrap it up here? I mean, it doesn't seem like Bitcoin's immediately about to move to like 14K or 12K. I mean, there's a chance, right? I mean, there's a chance it goes to 12.7. There's also a chance it just rallies back up to 13.2 or something. So I don't know. I mean, I don't think it's going to be extremely exciting in the next hour or so, which is as long as I would stay up anyways, because it's already really late here. So because I don't really anticipate a major move to 12K or 14K at this point, maybe we should just go ahead and wrap it up. So uh, yeah, why don't you guys subscribe if you guys like the content? Give the video a thumbs up. Remember to check out Telegram if you guys want. We have almost 7,000 people, so we're going to be looking for the 7,000 member admin soon. Um, so make sure you guys join. And remember, we also have the premium list at intothecryptoverse.com, the weekly reports, weekly videos, alerts channel, Telegram channel, and the risk dashboard. So now that I'm signing off, maybe we can all just go to sleep. I'm just going to go to sleep, and we'll continue this another day. So that will wrap it up for the video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Make sure you subscribe, and I will see you next time. Bye.